So, 3 weeks ago, I started my tech sales career at 20 years old. If you saw my last video, you know I landed my first tech sales job with no degree and no experience in the industry. So, I thought it would be interesting to make an update now that I've actually been in the role for a few weeks and kind of just talk about what that experience has been like so far. When I was researching tech sales before getting into it, most of the content I saw was from people who had already been doing it for years, and there really wasn't a lot of content from someone who was literally just starting out. So I figured I'd just document the journey as it happens. So going into that first day, I was definitely a little nervous. It was my first fully remote job, so working from home was already something new for me. But another thing that was on my mind was just the fact that I'm pretty young compared to most people in this field. I knew there was a very good chance that the people I would be meeting with would be older than me, have more experience, and probably have degrees. Naturally, that started to get my nerves going a little bit, but honestly, as soon as I first joined that meeting, a lot of that nervousness kind of just went away. Everyone was extremely nice and welcoming, and I was in a starting class of about 9 other people. Not all of us were in the exact same role, but we were all joining the company in revenue positions. There was only one other BDR in the class with me, and he's about 6 years older than I am, so I was definitely the youngest of the bunch. But overall, everyone was super kind and encouraging right from the start, which made that first day a lot less intimidating than I expected. So far, the first few weeks have mostly been training. Typically, each day starts with about 1 or 2 hours of Zoom meetings, and then the rest of the day is mostly self paced learning. One of the cool things we've been using is an AI roleplay system called Hyperbound, where you can actually practice cold calls with AI. I've been using that a lot to help get the pitch down and really start building some muscle memory for these conversations we'll be having once we start prospecting. A lot of the training has also been learning the product itself and studying the buyer personas that we'll eventually be reaching out to. Since I'm still in training for another week, I actually haven't started real prospecting yet. Right now is mostly preparing for that moment when the real outreach starts. One thing that surprised me about the job is how flexible it is. Because the role is remote, you can pretty much work from anywhere. Me personally, I'm going to be working from home during the whole ramp up process, but I've seen somebody working from a library. There was even another guy in the onboarding class that was working from a cafe. So it really just comes down to whether or not you're getting your work done. Another thing I learned is that you don't necessarily have to be in every single meeting throughout the day. Obviously, the onboarding meetings and important team meetings are a priority, but there are other meetings happening throughout the day, and it's not a huge deal if you can't make one, as long as there's a reason. That level of flexibility was definitely something I didn't fully expect before starting. The hardest part so far has definitely been the self-paced learning. There's a lot of different platforms and resources we use for training. For example, there's an AI roleplay platform, there's a self-paced course platform, and then there's another system that has all of the handbooks and documentation. So at first, it was honestly just a lot to keep track of, but once I started getting familiar with where everything was and how the systems work, it became a lot easier. Another adjustment has been switching from an in-office job to working from home. When you work in an office, if you have a question, you have the ability to just turn to the person next to you and ask them. But when you're remote, it's a little bit different because you have to message someone and then wait for them to respond. Sometimes they respond instantly, sometimes it might take an hour. Sometimes they might respond quickly and you just don't see it right away because you're switching between different tabs. And then 2 hours go by and then you go back and check the chat and realize, oh, they responded forever ago. So there's definitely a little bit of an adjustment period with that, but it's not a big deal. One thing that has given me a confidence boost so far is the roleplay scores and assignments. My scores have actually been higher than most people in the class, which was really encouraging. Obviously, practicing with AI roleplays and actually doing the job in real life are two completely different things, but it definitely gives me some confidence going in to the real prospecting part of the role. I'm really hoping I can take that momentum and roll it into the actual job once training finishes. One thing I didn't really expect is that working remotely can feel a little isolating sometimes. Not necessarily in a bad way, but when you're working alone, you sometimes wonder if you're doing anything correctly. I think some of that also comes from my previous job. where the environment was a lot more stressful. I did make a video about that. I'll probably put it in the little card thing, so watch that if you're interested. But sometimes I do catch myself worrying that I'm gonna get yelled at or lectured for doing something wrong. But so far, everyone has been extremely supportive, so I think that feeling will probably go away as I get more comfortable in the role. As of now, I definitely think getting into tech sales was a great decision. My first paycheck actually ended up being bigger than the paycheck from my last job, even when I included the commission I was making there. On top of that, I really enjoy the work from home aspect and the flexibility that comes with it. Honestly, I just enjoy the fact that I'm learning something completely new. I'm brand new to this role and to the industry. So there's a lot to learn, and that's something I actually really enjoy. If you're around my age and are thinking about getting into tech sales, I'd honestly say just go for it. It's definitely different from a lot of other jobs, and there's a lot to learn at the beginning, but the pay can be really good, and a lot of the roles are remote or hybrid, which is a huge plus. If you're willing to learn and put the effort in, it can be a really great opportunity. Anyways, I'm planning on documenting this whole journey as I go, so the next big thing I'm curious about is actually starting the real prospecting part of the job and figuring out how I can maximize my results and hopefully climb up the leaderboard. If you're interested in tech sales or just want to follow along as I build my career in the industry, feel free to subscribe, and I'll probably make another update once I start actually prospecting.